Thank you so much, everyone. I do appreciate your time. My name is Karen Joseph-McLean. You're my co-host, Cornel McLean, and we are health enthusiasts, as he so rightly stated, that we are not health practitioners, but we are health enthusiasts, just like yourself, always wanted to know what we can do to continually improve our health and that of our family and those that we care about, even those that we've just newly connected with. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. We have a health talk every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have extended invites to you, but feel free in the future to extend the invite to others as well. It is a recorded call. As Corner mentioned, we do have our private group that by invitation only, where we actually record many of these, so you can go back and if you haven't have the time, if you're driving, of course, to be safe as you're listening, you're able to take some copious notes. And so what I'm speaking on today is basically about the gut health connection. And as I share some information with you, feel free if you have questions later on, you can certainly put it in the comments or you can ask after the call. I'm just going to actually try to share my screen with you. And whenever you're trying to do some educated to provide information to individuals, it tends to be where you may have like a little glitch, a little computer glitch. And I have been experiencing that for a couple of days with my software. But thankfully, I was able to get the information to you. I'm going to actually share my screen. Just give me one quick second as I do that. Awesome. Having a little issue trying to share. Okay, here I go. And once I share this, please let me know if you can see the screen I'm going to share by putting a one in the chat, and I would appreciate that. I'm going to share right now. Okay, so if you can see the screen, please put a one in the chat, and I would appreciate that. Okay, so as we are actually going, thank you so much. So as we're going through the slides that I'm going to share with you, as Cornel mentioned rightly so, that we have captured information from different credible sites. I do document some of the sources in many of the slides. And if there's something else that you have a question, a specific area, again, we'll try our best to answer that to the best of our knowledge or seek, the information or the answer from individuals who are mentors and coach like that. We do have connections with naturopathic doctors, nutritionists, and so forth. So the gut health, the gut-brain connection it's actually surprising as to how everything is connected and how it impacts one area of the body impacts the other. So there's definitely a connection. And sometimes, when we say we put two and two together to make four, sometimes it doesn't quite align because you may have, one symptom, not realizing it could impact, it's actually coming from the gut, and the gut might have an issue, not realizing it's impacting the brain. So there's a connection between mental health, pain, what we eat, what we think, how we sleep. And so I'm going to go through all of that quickly with you. So the impact of the microbiome on the brain function impacts in different ways. So the neurotransmitter production, for example, there's certain gut bacteria that produce serotonin. And the other factors you want to think of as well that is vital. So the neurotransmitter are vital for the regulation of certain things. So for example, your mood, cognitive function, we don't realize that the gut impacts the brain. And so the gut-brain axis is the bidirectional communication. It is between the gut and the central nervous system, and it impacts your emotional and cognitive response. That's basically what the gut-brain axis is. It also impacts your behavioral changes. So there's studies that have been done to show how the altered state can lead to this. Like for example, anxiety, depression can cause from that. So our body changes as the season comes and goes, as you age, as you develop into certain different areas of your life, whether it's your physical, weight loss, weight gain, may have highly stressed moments versus calm moments. And so all these fluctuate, and so you have these different states that you go through in your life. So these changes can emphasize the connection between the microbiome and your mental health. So another thing as well is the inflammation and stress. Now, most of us, we know that if your body's highly inflamed, it's too acidic, that's where you give it a perfect storm, perfect breeding ground to have a disease or the body's not at ease. So we call that dis-ease. So inflammation and stress can impact your body in a way of giving it an imbalance versus a balanced state. So an imbalance in the gut bacteria can lead to increased responses. So you may have a flare-up, things may happen, and you had stress, so they're actually linked. It can be linked, which can cause various mental health disorders. So the gut and the brain, they are certainly connected. So the connection now, the gut-brain axis is called, as I mentioned before, the bidirectional communication. The gut sends information from the brain, and the brain sends signals to the gut. So neural pathways, endocrine systems, immune system, microbiome, all those are connected or interconnected. So basically thinking of your body sending signals or communication to another area of the body to be able to function the way it's meant to. So if there's sort of like an impact to the immune system, for example, the communication gets compromised. If there's an issue with the chemical imbalance in your brain, it affects the brain, how it creates a microbiota gut-brain axis, so communication. And so we have to be mindful because sometimes we go through these phases, these states, and on the outside it may seem okay, but there are things happening on the inside that you can't quite put your finger on. So if there's certain indicators, signs, symptoms, signals that you're noticing, you may be able to track them now that you have, an idea of things that you are experiencing. Or you may have someone, a friend or family member who's sort of sharing with you their concerns with their health. So the gut and the brain are connected through this gut-brain axis, as I mentioned before, so a bidirectional communication network. It includes all of these things, but it also influences each other's function and the health. So gut-brain axis regulates a few things: your stress, your appetite, your mood, your digestion, your overall health, your sleep, believe it or not, and pain sensation. So they are, of course, connected. So the gut inflammation, chronic conditions like IBD, irritable bowel disease, or IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, can affect the brain health. So inflammation leads to cognitive impairments and mood disorders. Again, it's an imbalance in the body and the brain. So neurotransmitter dysregulation is an imbalance where the microbiome can disrupt the production of serotonin that come from your tummy, right? Your gut. It impacts the mood and, of course, your emotional well-being. So sometimes you see I feel a little bit off. I don't know what's going on. My stomach doesn't feel right. I eat certain things, and this is what I'm feeling. Or I feel this particular way, but you can't quite put your finger on it. So the increased stress response, so for example, the gut dysbiosis can heighten this. So this body stress response, for example, exacerbating anxiety and your symptoms and depressive symptom. So restoring your gut health is crucial for mitigating the effects of microbiome-related disease, and this is very important to pay attention to. So there are some links here I found through the Hopkins medicine. Hopkins medicine. So, for example, some of the things I got from there, for example, the brain to gut communication, emotions, highly stressed, anxious, emotional state. It can lead to physical gut symptoms like, you have the butterfly feeling in your stomach, you have the butterfly feeling, could be anxiousness or nervousness, but really it's an upset disruption in your communication with your gut-brain axis. So in your stomach or your digestive issues can be, very small, a little minute symptoms versus an exacerbation of these symptoms. So direct neural control, the brain sends signals through the vagus nerve to regulate the gut functions, of course, communication, brain and gut. So impacting the impact on health and disease, of course, we talked about emotional well-being, neurological disorders. That, of course, that is the imbalance. So, for example, there's a research that suggests that there's a link between gut dysbiosis, the imbalance, and conditions such as Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, depression, and schizophrenia. Again, it's an imbalance. So functional gut disorder is something else as well to be mindful of. Conditions like IBS, as I mentioned before, are considered examples of disruptions in the gut-brain relationship. So how do you manage certain things? So one of that is also you may find that you have a food sensitivity. You can find that you eat something, you have an adverse reaction, and you can't quite put your finger on that. So one of the things I want to, some of the things I want to outline here is how you manage this. For example, eating a balanced diet, considering an elimination diet, which I'll explain further what that is as we go through this presentation. Getting an accurate food sensitivity test that can be done. You can speak to your doctor, your family practitioner, and ask if you can see a specialist to sort of see what types of food through either a naturopathic doctor or another type of specialist who can help you to identify certain foods that you're sensitive to. Getting a gut microbiome test, again, first step with it is with your family practitioner and ask them to refer you to someone who is an expert in that area to do the test. And of course, improve your gut microbiome. There's ways I'll share with you later on how that can be done through what we have found through research. And so, of course, improving your leaky gut, there's something called leaky gut syndrome that most people are not undiagnosed with. And so this leaky gut syndrome can actually impact other areas of the body, like, certain things going into your bloodstream, going into certain parts of your body, leading to your brain. All of these things can impact you, of course, because there's an imbalance. Regular physical activities, getting enough sleep, and I'll share with you what the recommended amount would be later on through the presentation, managing stress, eating foods that are high in probiotics and prebiotics. Symbiotic supplementation can actually be utilized to sort of supplement what you're eating because we know most foods on the planet actually are very depleted in nutrients. Some of the strategies I want to share with you as an example for probiotics and prebiotics. Live bacteria, fiber can influence the gut bacteria and potentially improve mood and stress. Now, if you have an underlying condition, that, for example, an autoimmune issue, there's certain things you can and cannot take. So again, speak to your naturopathic doctor, your nutritionist if you have one, your family doctor to refer you to someone who can help you to prepare, a dietary plan that can help you, especially if you have an underlying condition, an illness, or a condition that's impacting your overall well-being. Diet, as we mentioned before, the food you eat directly impacts the gut microbiome, which in turn influences the brain chemistry and function. Mind-body therapy is actually a suggestion that has been made by many people in their field. Therapies with CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and mind-body practices can help improve symptoms in both the brain and the gut. So as we know, there's a gut-brain connection. So when this communication is thrown out of balance, there's also where we talk about gut sensitivity and unpleasant symptoms can increase. As I mentioned before, stress, anxiety, depression, and traumatic experiences are key indicators of how this imbalance happens. So how does your gut health affect your gut health, right? There's lots of evidence about these information that impact the mood, microbiome, but it's only because it interacts with, certain things in your body, and also because it can become problematic digestion, can cause an onset of your body being even more stressed. Gastrointestinal issues such as IBS and colitis can be medically diagnosed and treated, but even you have a diagnosis or some sort of medication in the way of pharmaceuticals, you may still have other symptoms. So, for example, you're eating certain things that will sort of bring an onset or an inflammation, a bout of inflammation, or you may have an impact where you eat things like too much sugar, too much caffeine, too much alcohol, you're not moving right, your mental state has been impacted. So of course, this disrupts your intestinal, bringing onset of all these type of conditions if you've been diagnosed with IBS, IBD, colitis, and so forth. So going beyond the thought process that you may have a sugar crash or a hangover, what we eat can impact the mood and exacerbate the symptoms of these conditions, which are stressing, anxiety, and depressions that are closely related to the gut-brain connection. So just as an emotional event can cause undue stress, you've witnessed something, you experience something, you have an argument, you get overly stimulated in the way of a conversation or situation or something you've seen or witnessed, it can trigger the stress. And so all these things become a domino effect of you having on other issues. And the stress can trigger other things, other parts of your bodies, creating head and stomach aches, tension in the shoulders, back, and so forth. So the gut-brain connection is basically how it controls you. It's basically what you eat, what you do, how you move, what you're mindful of. And so this can actually take control over your body if you're not mindful of what you're consuming. Some of the things I wanted to also to keep in mind is that your mental health can affect your gut health, as we mentioned before. When you get stressed, it kicks in this negative spiral of symptoms. Uh, your hormones are impacted, goes off balance, so it secretes hormones into the body. It facilitates fight or flight mode instead of thriving mode or calm state. The response is a survival mechanism. Happens where it's a normal state to have, but not to be fight or flight mode all the time. Your body's highly stressed. It actually is overstimulated, and you're not able to stay in calm states for a long period of time. So things like, trouble concentrating, headaches, anxiety, anger, stomach problems, which you mentioned before, feeling overly fatigued, decreased sex drive, skin irritation, muscle tension, teeth grinding, apathy. Those are some of the things for symptoms of stress. So these are related, brain and gut, because again, everything is connected, especially with the brain and the gut communication. So as we speak on these things, maybe something may have popped into your mind, right? So how do you consider, okay, your gut is not cooperating right? You have more frequent anxious moments. You find your depressive state. Things are happening more chronic, like with physical pain. You have shoulder pain, back pain, stomach issues, and so forth. And of course, I would suggest that you write down these things as they come upon you. So keep track of it so you can better articulate with your doctor of how you're feeling, because you are the doctor of the future. If you can't articulate what you're feeling and express that to your doctor, that doctor will give you his educate or her educate expert of advice as to what they think is wrong with you, and give you medication to mask or to basically address the symptoms, not the cause. So gut health and anxiety is a surprising connection, as we mentioned before. Not only does your gut health affect your mood, but basically what's going on in your head has a direct effect on your digestive system. So someone would say, I don't feel hungry, I don't have an appetite. Oh, I feel nervousness in my stomach, or I feel, I feel blah, like the blah feeling, like I don't feel like I have energy. And so all of these things are happening in your body and you can't quite put your finger on it. So if the bacteria live in your gut becomes imbalanced, as we mentioned before, this is where you get gut inflammation. This is where it has a trigger domino effect of having a more serious illness. Not only a mental state, but also your physical state. And so the gut-brain axis is something that is like a two-way street. If the gut is not right, the brain is not right. If the brain is not right, the gut is not right. So it's like two-way communication. So the gut is like the brain, is full of nerves. They share many of the same connections, and also they're in constant contact with one another. So, for example, if the brain is not communicating effectively to the gut, that's where you have the disruption, and vice versa. Excuse me. So that's basically think of it as the second brain. That's the best way I can describe it. Another thing too as well, the vagus nerve is one of the biggest connection between the two. As I mentioned, the vagus nerve before, but basically it connects the two. But the connection is not just by means of the nervous system. Messages are also transported by means of chemicals called neurotransmitters, which I mentioned earlier. One of these neurotransmitters is the serotonin I mentioned, and if that's disrupted, that's where you get the imbalance as well. Also, there's some studies show that there's an impact on the impaired neurotransmission for individuals who've been diagnosed with ADHD. I was touching a little bit on that today, not a lot, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention because individuals who've been diagnosed with ADHD or undiagnosed, and they have some symptoms of that, where you have hypersensitivity, hyperactivity. Basically, again, there is impacting. There's research done where the gut and the brain there's some miscommunication happening. Giving individuals who has been diagnosed with ADHD the right types of food, the right types of nutrients, for example, probiotics, prebiotics, paying attention so the body stays in alignment, more in a homeostasis state, meaning that there's not little to no gut inflammation, normal gut motility, right amount of nutrients, a normal long-term cognition in the way of behavior and neurodevelopment. A lot of things are connected, as I mentioned, but giving your child or an adult who has been diagnosed with ADHD the right types of things, including those who've had other conditions like IBD and Crohn's, fibromyalgia, or they have a metabolic syndrome issue like type 2 diabetes and so forth. These are, of course, imbalance in the body. So this body's way of signaling to you that something's not quite right. Same with ADHD. There's an imbalance. So highly stressed, anxious, going through a mental um, change where you're feeling depressed. Again, it goes back to the gut and the brain. So in learning how to improve certain things for your overall well-being, to reduce and minimize those things, especially someone who has ADHD, helps to bring you from a mindset of fight or flight mode that's always in high alert versus a calmer state where you're able to better function. Again, this is the bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain. ADHD, as we spoke about before, there's some harmful systemic changes linked to the intestinal dysbiosis. So basically meaning that these are things we can be mindful of. You've been diagnosed with ADHD, it's not a life sentence. There are things you can do. So, for example, the dopamine precursor synthesizes in the intestines. Again, it's communicating to the central nervous system. It heightens the risk of this type of pathology, meaning basically that, in adults who, especially if you've not been diagnosed and you have certain symptoms, there's other alternatives instead of medication or in conjunction with medication to be able to determine what's the best solution for you. Is it only medication if you've been diagnosed, or are there other alternatives we can do, we can put into place to be able to manage certain things to help heal your gut and, of course, the communication between the brain and the second brain, which is your gut. So one of the things I want to share with you is that what can you do to be able to bring your body back into a homeostasis state? Well, one is if you're able to, if you don't have a sensitivity to certain types of fiber, of course, you can consider making sure you have a balanced diet, which includes fiber. So certain amount of carbs. So there's basically two types of carbs. We have the complex and we have the simple carbs. So going for complex carbs that keeps you full for longer periods of time. Some people go to, for the simple carbs. Sometimes I do that as well, like breads. You will also pay attention to how your body is reacting, right? You feel really sluggish after eating, certain types of carbs versus you feel more energetic. Again, these are things that indicators you can look at as you consume the types of food that will help you to fuel your body, and also to be able to give it the right type of nutrients it needs. So, for example, there's certain carbohydrates that fuel these preferred sources for beneficial gut bacteria, the good, healthy gut bacteria, versus the ones that are actually working against you. Sometimes you may have some types of foods or fiber that you're eating if you have an underlying condition like an autoimmune issue that you have to stay away from certain types of food or underlying condition that's called sort of weakens the barrier, protective gut barrier to protect you from allowing toxins into your bloodstream and triggering inflammation. So this is part of the leaky gut syndrome I spoke about before. If you have a leaky gut, which you're not unaware of, you can actually unintentionally have toxins leave from your gut into your bloodstream, triggering inflammation. Of course, it doesn't just stay around that area, it actually moves to other parts of your body, including the brain. So what can we do to support the brain-gut connection? Well, for one, we say we're supporting it by essentially maintaining overall health and well-being. And so we have to be mindful of that. So the tips you can think of is, I would ask some recommendations. As we know, many illnesses, it's basically can be reversed or the symptoms can be reduced, or in this case, can be managed effectively depending on what you've been diagnosed with. For example, eating a healthy diet is a very common thing that we say, but it's very cliche, but it's actually very essential. Now, we know that times if you're highly stressed, we tend to gravitate to the simple carbs, the simple things, processed food, because we're highly stressed. But if we're mindful of what we're eating, knowing that there's cause and effect, the consequences of not eating correctly, then you can think, okay, prepare mentally, prepare, proactively, and say, what am I going to eat? What am I going to consume? What am I going to buy when I go into the store? What am I going to choose? Okay, food that are high and rich in fiber, fruits, vegetables, fermented foods you can eat, things that will help to the growth of beneficial gut bacteria. Exercising regularly, so that's my challenge for myself for the next 90 days or so, to ramp up on my exercise routine and to be more active. So that's something that you can consider as well, depending on your state of your health. You can start slow, medium to intermediate, or do things that are not so sort of put too much strain on your joints, especially if you had an inflammation or inflammatory condition. So exercising regularly helps to distress the body, helps to promote the growth of beneficial gut bacteria as well, and managing the stress level. Be mindful of that. You find yourself complaining a lot, you feel you're not sleeping enough, you find your body's out of sorts, you feel highly alert, like you're always on, on mode versus like, calm mode, then we know something's not quite right. So this impacts your gut, right? And so managing stress through these techniques, such as meditation, deep breathing, yoga, so forth, can help you with supporting your brain-gut connection. So taking probiotics, seeking professional help is also one of the things. But one of the indicators I want to share with you, not only is the brain and the gut impacted, you might have other underlying conditions that you don't realize are connected to your gut-brain axis communication. For example, you may find yourself in a state of chronic pain or off and on pain, so to speak. So you may have, like, in the shoulder, the back, and the neck, and the lower back, especially in the area close to your spine, a joint pain overall. And then you find, you may have had a flare up. You have a highly inflamed, and this is what I speak about with the leaky gut syndrome. So thinking of paying attention to these things, your pain signals, your inflammation, the mood, stress, put all those things together, you realize, okay, something's not quite right. So again, track what you want to be able to resolve and to be able to reduce. How it could worsen your chronic pain if you have chronic pains, like for example, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia. You could have an issue with other types of chronic pain disorders. You may find that it will worsen. So there is actually studies to show that, individuals who had chronic pain, they have reduced microbial diversity, meaning basically your gut is impacted, disrupted, and of course you have lower levels of anti-inflammatory bacteria, which is meant to protect you, but you actually low on that. So you need to be able to find ways of increasing that. High levels of pain sensitizing metabolites. For example, those who have fibromyalgia have been found to lack certain beneficial bacteria involved in serotonin production and inflammation control. For those who have IBS or IBD, altered gut flora may affect motility, pain sensitivity, even anxiety levels, which further exacerbate the symptoms. The fibromyalgia we spoke about before is one of the things that is associated with microbial imbalances and systematic inflammation. Again, this is key condition links to gut microbiota. So the chronic pain we speak of shows got this issue. And the IBS, neuropathic pain that can happen in flare-ups can happen where your immune system and immune pathways impacted in a negative way. Chronic fatigue syndrome. I did actually a presentation on chronic fatigue syndrome some time ago, specifically on that particular condition. So often it overlaps with gut dysfunction and microbial imbalance. Again, the brain-gut axis. So what can you do? Well, a diet is a major factor, as I mentioned before, in determining which microbes thrive in the gut. So one of the most important components of the gut health is microbiota accessible carbohydrates. So these are found primarily in dietary fiber. So these carbohydrates are preferred fuel sources for beneficial gut bacteria. So now diets lack fiber, these microbes look elsewhere. So this is for sustenance. So often turning the body's own mucus, lining for food, which is a negative. So this can weaken the protective gut barrier. And again, I mentioned allowing toxins to enter in certain parts of the body, which you don't want it to go. So it influences, as I mentioned, all of these things you can see on the slide. Most important as well, one of the important things is that the nutrient delivery. So your body gets what it needs, but to deliver it to the right part of your body, if that is impacted in a negative way, then of course it's the imbalance. And so of course it impacts and influences all the things I mentioned before, which is stress, anxiety, mood, and your neurotransmitters, which is a signal pathway to both brain and gut. So as I mentioned before, probiotics, but the changing and adopting a diet rich in fiber is super important. Eating the right foods, balancing the right things, regular exercise, stress management. Now, here's a tip on stress management. Mindfulness, self-awareness, meditation, and yoga can reduce this. Now, if you're not into sort of like yoga, if you're not mobile enough to do actual yoga, there's something called chair yoga. There's things you can do. For example, if you love the water, you can do aqua fit, which is less impact on your joints. There's mindfulness through meditation. You can actually journal so that you can release those negative thoughts from your mind. There are different techniques you can do to benefit the health and brain function. Just overall learning how to relax. Maybe you should plan a trip once a year if you can, or maybe a staycation with some girlfriends, or to go hiking if you can, as long as, of course, you're being safe. Have a hobby. You may have a hobby you like, you love, and you should actually start doing more of that. Also, consider listening to motivational things or do something that motivates you. Something to get your mind off of the current challenges you're going through, sort of distract you in a sense so that you become into a relaxed state. Also therapy. Therapy depends on what you're comfortable with, and speaking to your practitioner as who can refer you to a therapist that can help you to sort of deal with the stress management that which would be highly recommended. So here's actually just a slide. I'm not going to go through it. It just sort of highlights some of the areas that it impacts: the genetics, your diet, your sleep quality, infection, level of infection in your body, environmental toxins can actually impact your gut-brain axis, and many other things, including, I mentioned before, inflammation. So the dietary pattern directly impacts different things. So for example, your food choice can impact your depression and your anxiety. You may feel a temporary relief because you've had something that's a processed food for the immediate, but then the long-term effect is negative. So that's where the cause and effects, the consequences happen. Um, Things that will sort of impact your nervous system later on. Be mindful of that, what you eat, making sure you're eating things like the right omega-3s, a good one that actually works with your body, that have given the right amount of dosage. Be mindful of the additives in foods, artificial flavors, and so forth. Eating the right things that'll help your body to be able to move to a homeostatic state, and to be mindful of how often you're consuming things that are not conducive to your health. So how you eat and what you eat is all dependent on you. It's your choice. You are actually being accountable for what you eat, you buy from the time you put into your shopping cart to the time you put it into your cupboards, to the time you put it on the stove, to the time you put it on the table for you and your family to eat. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of what you're consuming, what you're buying, what you're bringing in the house, because the easier it is to see it in your home, the easier it is for you to be tempted to eat something that is not conducive to your health. So you can eat many delicious food to help support your gut-brain axis. The key is to sticking to the whole food regime and avoid processed food. So, try to be proactive with your vegetables, fruits. If you're diabetic, make sure that you're mindful how many fruits you're having for the day, whole grains. In the Caribbean, we tend to have, certain types of carbs as a main meal. Learn how to portion your meals accordingly, in the right amount of carbs, simple and complex, and the amount of protein you're having. If you're exception, of course, if you're vegetarian or vegan, sorry. Beans, fish rich in omega-3 healthy fats. Make sure it's not farm grown but wild caught, because all the fish that's grown basically in farms, they are they're fed with antibiotics. So that goes into your system. So a lot of these things don't leave your body, or it impacts you in a negative way, which is not meant for you to have so much antibiotics in your body. Antibiotics, especially through meats, fish, chicken, and so forth. If you can have food rich in fiber, there's certain people who cannot have things like potatoes, so be mindful of what your current condition is to know if you can and cannot have those things. But again, it's through trial and error, right? As you're consuming it without, of course, not causing immediate harm to yourself. Nuts, prebiotic food, polyphenol-rich foods like blueberries, dark chocolate, which I love dark chocolate, things like turmeric, ginger, all those things are highly anti-inflammatory. So these are things you can actually select from. So as we mentioned, there's a direct link between the gut health and mental health. We spoke about the serotonin, but also dopamine. So this influences the mood and cognitive function as well. So while the mental state also affects the gut, think of it as the gut environment. Also think as an unhealthy gut microbiome can contribute to mental health issues. So long term, short term, it impacts you either way. There's certain foods that I mentioned is good for the brain and for the gut. So I have an article here that I actually capture some information, some tips. You can take a screen capture of that if you wish to. But also there's something called an elimination diet. So some people may go through a health concern or health condition, and they're told, okay, take this medication to see how it works. Take that medication to see how it works. And so to trial and error, you're sort of like the guinea pig, so to speak, until they find something that actually works for you to sort of help with the symptoms but not the true cause. So I have a friend who actually had tried this, an elimination diet, because she had an autoimmune issue, illness or condition, and this worked for her. So she was able to do through elimination journal everything that she was eating and pay attention to how her body was responding for a day or 2 or 3 days, and kept track of that. And then by looking at what caused the flare-ups in her body, she was able to eliminate certain things. Of course, you can speak to a nutritionist to see how they can create something to help you to get on a regime that you can actually sustain. So an example, for example, an example of an elimination diet for things that can trigger your anxiety, because if you have a condition, underlying condition, anxiety, something can happen. So for example, 3 to 4 weeks, eliminate certain things, basic food to eat. Phase 2, systematic reintroduction, 6 to 8 weeks. And of course, if you have a condition, please consult a naturopathic doctor or nutritionist to make sure that you're eating and consuming the right things to keep the right nutrients coming into your body so you can sustain yourself. Lifestyle intervention. So for example, there's known for intermittent fasting is help for gut healing. I actually did a 21-day fast, not for that reason, but I found that I had more energy. I was able to think more clearly. My cognition was better. And this was for me fasting and praying for 21 days, but I did that. And so you may not be able to do that, or you could do more or less, but intermittent fasting, especially if you have been told you have a gut issue like leaky gut, this would be something that can help you to heal the gut, give it a chance to rest so that it can repair itself. Exercise protocols for microbiome health and stress reduction for gut integrity. Again, consult with someone who is in that area to be able to give you the right protocol to help you to have a faster recovery. Daily exercises like breathing exercise, progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness meditation, nature walks. I love those. I tend to listen to my music or my audiobooks whilst you're doing that. It's actually very empowering. Relaxes the body, keeps it into a calm state. So you're better able to cope with things that are coming at you or to you. Weekly massages, if you can, that would be actually a good thing to have. social activities if you're able to, creative hobbies. You can with a friend, a group, or by yourself. Find recreative things to do, recreation to help you to stay, in a state where you're not going into a downward spiral of feeling anxious or depressed. Chronic stress, for that, seek therapy. As I mentioned before, prioritize your quality of sleep, set work-life boundaries, balance your schedule. Sleep, which is always a challenge for most of us, including myself. Try your best to optimize your sleep for bacterial balance because your body gets a reset when you sleep. It helps you to reset your immune system, your gut, your brain, your overall well-being. But try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If you have a night shift, try to get some sleep in between during the day to get at least up to 7 to 9 hours. And avoid screen time 1 to 2 hours before bed is always important, especially with that blue light that impacts and disrupts your sleep, especially if you're going through a season of life where sleep is an issue, it's a scarcity for you. Pre-sleep gut support, things like magnesium, herbal teas, gentle stretching, things like that can actually help. Of course, try to fall asleep within 20 minutes, of you going to bed. Can be challenging for others. For others, it might be okay, but it's something to work towards and you can wake up more refreshed. So some of the dietary things we mentioned before, like anti-inflammatory meal planning, omega-3s, leafy greens, so colorful vegetables, healthy fats. Olive oil is really good. Stay away from the vegetable oil as best as you can. Avocados, if you can, or substitute for avocados, nuts, and so forth, and type of servings according to what your dietary restrictions are. Foods to minimize refined sugar. Try to eliminate sugar. Avoid as much consumption of hidden sugars, like some seasonings, especially the Caribbean type, has they have hidden sugars, hidden salt. So be mindful, read your labels, pay attention, take that extra little time, 5 minutes just to read the labels before to compare. Reduce the amount of processed food that you're consuming on a weekly or daily basis. Trans fat, be mindful of that, especially in a hidden ingredient in most of the foods that we tend to like with like nice juicy flavors. Excessive alcohol, reduce the amount you consume until you have no need for it. If you choose to move in that direction, I'm going to stress this one as well: artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners have been known to have cause other underlying health conditions. And so you're having consuming some substitute sugar, which goes and actually affects the brain, affects the gut. Make sure you eat at regular times. Don't skip your meals, unless of course you're doing intermittent fasting. Stop eating with 3 hours before bed for optimal sleep. But in addition to that, consider superfoods that can actually be beneficial for you. Things like I can mention blueberries, you have goji berries, spirulina, you have many other great superfoods you can actually add and complement with what you're eating for your consumption for energy and for protecting your gut. I actually love this number one, which is reishi. I fell in love with this 14 years ago. Consuming it had many health benefits that we've experienced for myself and my household. But the reishi is something that's actually well known in the eastern part of the world. So it's also called Ganoderma lucidum. So Ganoderma is beautiful, shiny skin. That's what it means in the Western world. Reishi is a Japanese term name in Japan. Linzer is in China. Of course, it's indigenous to that part of the world, but it actually has been introduced for the last 20 plus years here in the western side of the world, just like we've heard of ginseng and all these things, types of superfoods, coconut oil and so forth. So knowing now the benefits of that, there's over 3,000 case studies through this site, which I found was called Public Medical Library. So peer-to-peer review of this amazing mushroom. And now for me, I was never a mushroom person until I started consuming it into beverages that I can't taste it. And I started seeing all these benefits and feeling these things. So this superfood I would highly recommend. Whether you have an ability to be consistent with your vitamin consumption, which I'm not really all for that, but 3% of the world population takes vitamins and then they forget about it. The rest, like myself. So the 97% of people are deficient in nutrients. So our body needs that nutrients to be able to thrive. So I'm going to share with you a couple of slides before we wrap up. Basically, it's a supplement. So think of supplementing like omega-3s, things like your fatty acids, turmeric, things like that, if you're able to. But here comes along this amazing, supplement, food supplement that I didn't know about 14 years ago. But at that time, I did some research and I found some information. And as I continue to delve into this, I noticed that from my findings through these credible sites, that it has so many health benefits, including supporting the immune system, including for the brain, cognition, the body, the gut as well. And not only that, it helps with removing oxidative stress from your body. It supports not only immune system, but also provides mental alertness, and it's very high in nutrients like antioxidants. So as a comparison, you may need, for example, avocados. You may get 7 of the doses you need from the avocados, where you get 150 antioxidants from just a single dose of this reishi or Ganoderma. I may go back and forth with the term, but it's the same thing. We may gravitate to cinnamon. You don't have cinnamon every single day, but cinnamon really has a good amount of antioxidants. But compared to the superfood of reishi, 11 to 150, that's a big difference right there, right? So it's like almost like 12 to 1. If I'm counting right, or 50 to 1. All right. So for example, green tea, I love green tea. And you get 54 of the daily use consumption of your green tea may have 1 to 2. You may need to have 2 or 3 cups of the green tea to get the right amount of antioxidants you would get in the Ganoderma, for example. So here are some things that I want to share with you. We know that foods have, antioxidants we need, terpenoids, flavonoids. We need all these things. We know they all have benefits, things that can help with anti-inflammatory with the foods we eat, protecting the brain, protecting, the gut. These are things that we know that is needed. So, for example, antioxidants helps to rid your body of free radicals. It protects you. It helps to protect the gut microbiome. It helps with your mental acuity. All these things we know antioxidants do, but do we get the right amount to be able to sustain this? So this is what I found through pubmed.gov, pubmed.gov. And you can do your own research because there's a plethora of information there. You can go to your heart's content. So I sort of captured a snippet of some of the things I found. So for example, we know that the Ganoderm itself not only protects the immune system, it actually has anti-inflammatory properties. So for someone who's going through, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic pain, as I mentioned before, stems from the gut, can happen other ways in the brain. And so the anti-inflammatory properties helps with reducing some of those symptoms. It has a sedative-like effect, so it actually calms the body, calms the brain, reduces the stress level. It has like a high amount of flavonoids, polysaccharides, that has antioxidants. All of these properties are all helping your body into a homeostasis state. So not only is it helping you with those things, it helps reduce your anxiety, your pain, level of pain, your depression, and many other things. So it acts like an antidepressant. The Ganoderma or reishi, as I mentioned, I'll go back and forth with the term, is the same thing. Not only is it helping with anti-inflammatory properties, it helps with nerve regeneration. I mentioned about neurotransmitter, all the brain's signal from the brain to the gut. It helps also as a neuroprotection. And so all of these things are helping the brain and the gut and overall well-being, and also improves cognitive impairment. I mentioned before, there's some conditions that can actually trigger Alzheimer's and many other conditions like Parkinson's. And so this actually works as a protective barrier. I mentioned also as well that, not only are we looking at the type of vitamins and nutrients we get or pharmaceuticals, what I want to share with you, stress to you, is that this Ganoderma is considered a food supplement as well as a medicinal supplement on the same category, 2 different categories. But the reason I say that is that you can actually have your medication and still consume the Ganoderma or reishi because there's no known negative interaction with medication or other vitamins. And you can consume it because it's considered on the class of food supplement. It aids with chronic mild stress, so reducing that, depression. It also aids in individuals who have restlessness before going to bed, or they have restlessness syndrome. Insomnia. Some people may have issues with their memory. All of these things impact with the brain and gut. The cognition is off, but also help with your sleep, which can be impacted if you feel overly fatigued, which I mentioned before, chronic fatigue. Those who have issues with IBS, IBD, colitis associated with certain condition, the Gandum is known to help, especially the spores, because the actual herb grows into 3 stages, or harvested at 3 stages. And so the spores are actually the seeds that goes back onto the plum logs, or to the as Mother Nature intended to actually germinate and to create more. So it helps with the gut microbiota, as I mentioned before. That's an issue with the gut-brain disruption. It helps to reduce inflammation. It decreases symptoms of colitis and so many other things as well. Also, the Gandum polysaccharide is part of the makeup of the reishi. It promotes the recovery of certain intestinal barrier. It works as a protective barrier in the intestinal tract. If you're looking at consuming something that helps you with your overall well-being, including that particular repairing or helping out the gut, this could be something you could consider. It also improves if you're taking probiotics. It actually helps as you consume that with the Gandum spores to deliver into your system more effectively into your intestinal tract. So people who have IBD and other type of inflammatory disorder, it helps the absorption better. So it stays in your body. I mentioned before also that the depression is something that comes along with feelings of you have a leaky gut, or gut disruption that you have with the gut-brain connection. It defeats stress, depression, inflammation. So those who have chronic stress or mild stress, it helps to reduce those and to get the body into a wellness state. Individuals who have major depressive disorder also is known to help with that as well. The Gandum lucidum, or reishi, helps in certain conditions like those who have inflammatory or autoimmune issues that are linked to the gut, for example, fibromyalgia, those who have bouts of depression or intense pain. It helps reduce it, as I mentioned in the previous slide. The chronic fatigue, as I mentioned before, it actually is known to help with relaxing the body, helping you get a good, better quality of sleep so you can wake up more rejuvenated. So it acts as a sedative to relax the body in many ways. I mentioned also the oxidative stress. So we know that the body has free radicals that can come upon, internally. And so taking the right amount of dosage of antioxidants helps to eradicate that as well. You mentioned the anti-inflammatory, but not only that, the cannabis possesses a high level of antioxidative properties as well. Protects the brain, regeneration, oxidative stress, improves spatial memory abilities, helps with the neuroprotection of your brain, of your central nervous system, and many other benefits that it's been known for. And these, of course, as you see, PMID, these are the PubMed study IDs. So you can, at your heart's content, you can go to PubMed and you can check for more detailed breakdown of those PubMed studies. So colitis is also one of the things that is impacted if you have a gut-brain disruption. Cordyceps is another thing as well. So we have mentioned the reishi, there's now cordyceps. Cordyceps is another great superfood. It helps with getting your body into a wellness state. They work separately or synergistically together. It helps with sort of modulating the intestinal barrier. So it helps with the gut-brain connectivity, improve intestinal health. It helps to reduce the side effects of the treatments that you may be going through. Also, it has a high amount of polysaccharides, which we know is really good for the antioxidant part of it. Studies also show that it improves sleep as well, and also helps to increase your appetite or improve your appetite if you have an issue with your appetite. If you don't have an issue with your appetite, then it actually normalizes it. It helps with your immune system, your immunity. It helps with your libido. I mentioned before that the gut brain can actually decrease your sex drive. So libido is also something that's been known to help with, and also anti-inflammatory. Also has the properties for depressive behaviors, especially those who are going through chronic mild stress. So many of these health benefits can be experienced as you consume it because everyone's body is different. You may have a different experience than I do. You may have an underlying condition that's different than mine, or you may be overall healthy, but just want something to help you support your immune system. The mycelium, which is part of the Ganoderma, as well as the cordyceps, helps with individuals who have depressive disorders. So it works like an antidepressant. Again, anxiety, pain, depression, all these things can be combated and alleviated by consuming these natural remedies or natural supplements that can help you with your overall well-being. I mentioned also those two, but there's one more I want to mention as we wrap up is the lion's mane. So lion's mane is a third of the superfoods I wanted to bring to your attention, and this specifically helps with your cognition, this depressive disorder, stress, moodiness. Also, most importantly, mental energy. So it is known to help to improve your cognitive function. It has antimicrobial properties, oxidant properties, meaning it's actually reducing your oxidative stress because once the body has oxidative stress, you're moving towards an unwell state. And so as we consider these type of conditions that's tied to the gut and brain connection, think of consuming something that can actually help you with your overall well-being. The company we represent is called Ganoderma, sorry, Organo. We discover wellness through Organo. So we're a brand with a purpose. We have many types of products. But one of the things I want to share with you, all of them infuse with what I shared with you before, except for one that has all three of these. And it is naturally grown, organically grown, certified organic, has a patent on it. There are those on the market that are artificially grown in plastic bags. They're also considered organic, certified organic, but as Mother in Nature intended is how we provide it, the best of the best. Now, normally the actual superfood is bitter to taste, but because we have a patent that infuses it into everyday consumable like hot cocoa, coffee, teas, comes in a capsule form, these actually you do not taste the bitterness, you just taste the gourmet beverages and get the overall experience. So we have, as I mentioned, over 32 certifications and growing worldwide, including EcoCert, which we know that certain things in North America cannot even get to the borders of the European side because of certain types of ingredients, but knowing that we have the certification is also a win-win for us. So we want to practice, mindfulness, positivity, wellness. This one small change can actually have a lasting impact on you and your family. It comes in a supplement form, as I mentioned. It goes into 3 stages: the mycelium, which is the root, the fruiting body, which is the actual reishi, the flowering body, then the spores, which is considered 17 times more potent than all the other parts, but they all have their benefits. I tend to gravitate to the spores. I love it. I started consuming it about, I think, 10 years ago, but I've been consuming the beverages for 14 years and I actually love the experience of that. And so as we unlock the full potential, you can determine what best suits you and know that you can actually, sort of improve your health and well-being by consuming a supplement that can help you in rejuvenating your body. This is one of the actual products we have, which is in coffee. It's actual coffee, but the infusion of all of these products, these superfoods, negates the negative effects of coffee whilst you're getting all of the antioxidants you need, all the nutrients you need into your body, because the beverages are just delivery mechanism to get them into your system. You gravitate to coffee, I may gravitate to tea, but again, we're getting the supplements that we need, the nutrients we need in our body. It comes in tea forms, some caffeine free, some have caffeine, but again, the actual infusion of all of these amazing food supplements negates negative effects. So no heart palpitations, no jitters, no caffeine crash, won't raise your pressure, and so forth. So as I wrap up here, I just want to make sure I mention this to you before we end and open up for questions, is that there's a limited time. If you see something that's of interest to you in the way of trying or consuming for at least for 30 days, 30, 60, or 90 days, just to see how your body will respond to it. Get back to the person who invited you and get yourself consuming it, switch out your brand for at least that time frame. Pay attention to your body. The body will never lie to you. We have a promotion right now, and the orders over 50 Canadian or US dollars, only in North America. Actually, it's free shipping. It comes from Victoria, BC in Canada. We have 2 warehouses in the US, and it'll come to your door or your place that you prefer for delivery. And of course, it's you can start consuming it and enjoying the benefits of that. So with that, I'd like to wrap up here and ask if there are any questions. Please feel free to ask. No questions. I'm going to double check to see the messages here to see what we're saying. Yes, there are hidden sugars in seasoning. Yep. I found that out many years ago during my first time I fasted. And I started looking at the ingredients and thinking, wow, first ingredients is sugar, second ingredients is salt. Then we have the other seasoning and go, nope. So this is a tip. The first 8 ingredients in a product in order of the quantity in the bottle is what it is. So you would have more sugar because it's number 1 ingredient in, let's say, 8. Salt is the second amount in the quantity in that bottle or box, second and so forth, third and so forth. So be mindful of that. So for shipped, so it depends on where you live. Most of the time right now we have kind of post is on strike, but most of our shipments come through UPS. If you are in some parts may go through Canada Post, but most of the orders go through UPS. As you're on strike, most likely it'll go through UPS until the strike is over. And so this is something that you can actually find. I ordered some products on Thursday, I think, and I already got my box from UPS. I was so excited. So I know for myself I consume it, so I make sure I'm never without it. We do have some customers who are local to us. So yeah, this is something that, the products are readily available. From the US side, of course, we have 2 warehouses, one in Washington State and one in Nevada. And of course, it may take 3 to 5 business days to get to you, depending on where you are in the States. Here, it's 5 to 7 business days. And of course, it is actually accessible that way through the website, the person who invited you. Yes, thank you for that. The person who said carbohydrates turn into sugar as well, so be mindful of that. Thank you for that tip. So of course, complex carbohydrates versus simple carbohydrates. Complex, like, your vegetables and so forth, those are complex. So you can eat more of that versus the simple carbs and less of that to balance yourself out so that you are mindful of what you're consuming because it's gonna break down into sugar, right? So as we're doing that, oh, someone has a question?
Yes, I just have a bit of a question. I think my husband is going to reach out to you regarding the coffee.
Mhm.
I had one pack. We got it the other day, and we shared one. Of course, this is Petronella, Kelly-Ann. So of
I
course,
yeah.
yes. So we had a pack of the coffee. We shared it between the 2 of us, and I had one pack left because he gave me 3. He had one, and then of course I had one on my own. I was not feeling very well this morning. I felt groggy and sleepy. And so I decided to take this thing. And I'm telling you, the thing works. So we're going to reach out to you because I want to. The thing is this, I did not have, generally, when I drink coffee, I feel without a word of a lie, and someone says to me, I don't, it's because of the coffee. I always feel like there was a mask over my eyes. My eyes become very cloudy and stuff of that nature. But I was rejuvenated, and I did not have that feeling as I used to have that. I can't explain the type of feeling I have when I drink the actual coffee, the other coffee, but I drank your coffee and I was really blown away. I felt rejuvenated. It's almost like I got a supplement. I'm not sure how to explain it with a tint of zinc, and I just felt really, really refreshing my body. So My husband is going to reach out to you to find out how we can get
Reach out
coffee.
to you, not a problem. We can do that. And one of the things that I love about it, and thank you for sharing that it does our heart good when we get hear testimonies like this, because we know we're on the right track. Basically, the reishi, what it does, it negates the negative effects of caffeine. So those who have issues with jitters or heart palpitations, extra sensitive to caffeine, those are the things that you will not experience because it actually the reishi or the ganem goes into your body as an adaptogen and does what it's supposed to do. So when you need to sleep, you will sleep. When you need to be alert, you'll be alert, but not the crash that you normally get after 20 minutes, half an hour drinking coffee, right? And some people get headaches with this. I've been told feedback, people don't, they don't get headaches like they normally do when they're drinking regular coffee, right? So I'll be more than happy myself or Cornell will reach out to you. Thank you for sharing that, Petronella. And there's a question here from one of our guests. It says they're asking about products that can help prevent cancer. So keep in mind the coffee, teas, hot cocos, although they taste great, they are not the actual the delivery mechanism. What actually is the power behind our brand is the Ganoderma or the Reishi. We call them the same name, same thing, but different names. I'll give an example from my cousin. She's like a sister to me. She was diagnosed with breast cancer and stage 1. And she had to do surgery. And so I spoke to a friend of ours who's a mentor as well. He's a naturopathic doctor. And I know what this can do. I know what the benefits are, but still it's family. So I reached out and he told me before surgery, basically have her take the spores, which is the capsule, the pure form, therapeutic, and to have 2 every waking hour before surgery, after surgery, even when she's going through her radiation, when she did 20 rounds of radiation, continue taking the spores because what it does, and there's actually findings behind that. I do have a few presentations I've done in the past I can share with you, and or whoever invited you can share with you. Basically, it protects the organs whilst you're going through chemo. It protects the intestines. It protects, your body itself as you're getting the treatment for chemo radiation. In my cousin's state, when she had that, of course, she didn't lose, thank God she didn't lose her breast. But 6 months after, when she went back to see the same doctor, he couldn't find the scar because what the actual Gundam was doing is heating the skin the way it's meant to. So he couldn't find the scar. He was sort of like shocked. Did I do surgery on this person? And I said, we did. And he said, yeah, I had to go back and check the charts. So we know it was doing something for her because what it is that your body needs the right nutrients to perform well. Whatever you give it is how it either heals or breaks down. So you're giving the body the right amount of nutrients, it's actually performing the way it's meant to. So if you give it the things that are opposite, it's not going to perform well. So in this case, the spores is what she consumed. She was having she loved the king of coffee, so she was consuming that. And in that state, she was actually giving her body what it needed and why she's going through this traumatic experience. And of course, through situations like cancer, they do ask questions. Do you feel suicidal? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel all of this? And she was stating no. She had her moments of feeling anxious. I'm not going to lie to you. She did, but through prayers, and I'm a believer, so I'm not trying to post my faith on you. Through prayers and talking and consuming the right things, she was able to. Thank God now she's 6 years remission. And also one thing as well, when you're taking radiation and chemo, it can rob your bones your of the nutrients. So when she did the test before and after for her bones, it was actually stronger. And she came back and she told me that. So one day I'll get her record her testimony on she's shy. I'll get her testimony on video and she'll share her story. But this person says all the products promotes health and wellness. Yeah, King. I've been told the King helps with migraines, blood sugar, blood pressure, nerves, brain fog, and I'm just reading all of this. I'm reading this out because someone has stated that it helps the King helps with the migraines, the blood sugar, blood pressure, that's their nervous system and the brain fog. So there's so many benefits this person is sharing with me. So thank you for sharing all of this. I do appreciate it. It does my heart good when I hear these stories of your health journey, because we want to continue to be a part of your health journey. If you're not part of our Facebook group, keep in mind, whoever invited you, they can extend an invitation. It's private, so it's not open to the public. I put all the recordings there from the past and present in there. I do have to update 3 more, I think, that I've sort of lagged behind on. But we've been doing this health talk for 9 months, past 9 months, every week. So feel free to share. And with that, have a great day. Oh, sorry, before I say that, I just want to mention to you, Dr. Bob Bukowski, who's a naturopathic doctor, is part of our team. He'll be coming into town November 9th. It's a Sunday afternoon or morning, I believe. So if you're interested in coming out, feel free. He'll be there. You can actually have any inquiries with him. You can ask some questions. All right. So talk to you. Have a great day, everyone. Blessings to you and enjoy the rest of your night.
Sorry, Kerry-Ann.
Yes.
Yes, if you can mention to him, once a month he usually have Ask the Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So the first Wednesday of every month, there is a private Ask the Doctor call. I can share that. Any of us who's here can share it with you, and you can join on and ask questions, any question that you would like to address pertaining to health, and we can invite you. So thank you so much, Cornel. It's an oversight of
Yeah,
my
I believe
part.
that's tomorrow. I believe.
Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow. So one first Wednesday of every month. So once a month, he has this Ask the Doctor call. All right. Have a great evening, and hopefully I've answered all the questions here. And enjoy the rest. Take care.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.